And for the introduction. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a landscape of results on stochastic variational inequalities that appear in random mechanics. And the plan of my talk is the following. So I will start first with a fundamental problem of elastoplasticity, which is one-dimensional. With noise, and we'll explain the model given by engineers in the 60s. Then I will move to the mathematical framework of stochastic variational inequality proposed by Bensoussan in 2008. And then after those 2 points where we essentially have the background, I will explain some result about the notion of long cycles that I've proposed in 2012, plus an application to the risk analysis of failure for this type of system. And then I will move to the Kolmogorov equation in a backward sense to compute quantities that we cannot get from the long cycles. And for the two last parts, I will discuss about ongoing research. First, what we are doing at SEMRAX. So this is essentially problems coming from control, where the underlying process is a solution of a stochastic variational inequality. And then at the end, I will discuss further problems where we can have also a variational inequality structure. Okay, but let me start first with explanation of the elastoplastic problem. So it comes from Carnop and Sharton, 1966. So before I explain the model, let me show you an example of a mechanical structure that can be modeled by such a problem. So what you have here, so you have a pipeline, and this pipeline is on a table, and this table mimics an earthquake. So you have the table moving, and then the structure responds to this excitation, and there are some deformation in the structure that are reversible and some are irreversible. And for engineering purposes, it's very important to identify the amount of irreversible deformation, because that's an indicator of fragility. So what you have on the left here is a forcing, and what you see on the right here is a juxtaposition of the response from the mechanical test in black and this one-dimensional model that I'm about to explain in red. And even if this model is one-dimensional, it's still relevant. It's not a toy model. Okay, so here is an explanation of the model. I start with a very simple elastic behavior. So we will consider some coefficient for the damping, C naught, and K for the stiffness. We have an external forcing. We take it white noise first, in the sense that W is a Wiener process, and Xt will be the response of the oscillator. Okay, so in the linear case, you have a restoring force here, and this restoring force is proportional to the total displacement. Now, if you move to the case of elastoplastic, so we are discussing in particular the elasto-perfectly plastic case, the force is not linear anymore with respect to the displacement. It's non-linear, and the non-linearity comes from this bound. Force is bounded, remains bounded at K times capital Y, where Y is called an elastic bound, and the notation Y means the yield for the phase transition. And if we look at the behavior of the system, so if in the abscissa you have the total displacement, in the ordinate you have the force, so you look at the relationship between those two quantities. There is a threshold, so there is a time, so theta 1, the first time when the force reaches one of those two bounds. And right after that time, the force remains bounded in a sense that Ft remains at k times capital Y. And there is a plastic deformation or irreversible deformation that is called delta that appears here. And this process absorbs all the deformations that are irreversible but remains the force constant. So let me just explain briefly delta. If you look at a time that is before the first time that f is minus k capital Y on this figure, then we can write delta in an explicit way. And delta is a running maximum of the positive part of xs minus capital Y. Okay, so here you see from this writing that xt minus delta t is smaller than capital Y. Okay, and then there is an interval of time where this force remains bounded, and when xt stops increasing, then delta t stops increasing as well, and the force goes back into the elastic phase. Okay, so now let me introduce the notation y for the velocity of x and z for the distance or the difference between x and delta. Then the problem that I just explained can be written as follows, where the restoring force is actually kzt, but we have two phases. One is called elastic, when z is strictly bounded in absolute value by capital Y, and we have this equation like a linear oscillator. And the other phase is called plastic, when z is equal to capital Y with a positive velocity, or z is equal to minus capital Y with a negative velocity. And here what you see is that the nonlinearity comes from the switching between the two phases. And you cannot anticipate those switching in advance. Okay, so I want to illustrate this phase transition. So before the first time that the force reaches the bound, you have a linear dynamics. So this is typically the blue curve that you have here. But it is important to emphasize that what we have to see is we have to have in mind the velocity field. So when y is positive, the particle moves from the left to the right, so it goes toward this right boundary. When y is negative, the particle moves from the right to the left, so it goes to the left boundary. So let me write something that we will need later. Typically, the sign of y when z is on the boundary is equal to the sign of z when z is on the boundary. Okay, and then we have a similar phenomenon after the first plastic phase. So now between the time tau 2 and theta 2 and tau 2, we have a second plastic phase. Okay, so we have the model in mind, but what want engineers? What do they want to compute? They have a clear idea of what they want, and they want to. One thing that they want is the risk of failure, and the risk of failure for a given maturity time capital T for a given threshold B can be written as what is the probability that the maximum of the irreversible deformation goes above a threshold B. And the plastic deformation or the irreversible deformation is given, is recalled just right there. Okay. Okay, so I gave the explanation of the model, I gave the motivation, and now comes the mathematical framework of stochastic variational inequalities as proposed by Bensoussan and Thury in 2008. And the point of that is that it's going to be helpful to improve engineering method. Okay, so first, how to describe the models that we have seen just right before. So the noise is given by W, so we will use the notation Ft for the filtration given by this noise. And now we can observe that the triple Z, Y, delta satisfies these four conditions. So the first condition tells us that the couple Z and Y remain in a convex domain of R2. And it has continuous trajectories, and it's measurable with respect to Ft. The second condition tells us that Y satisfies with stochastic differential equation, but Z satisfies this differential equation with a perturbation that is d delta, and delta satisfies the points 3 and 4 that tells us that delta has continuous trajectories, remains measurable with Ft, has bounded variation, and also delta does not remains constant whenever Z is strictly inside the domain. So what we have here, we have a reflected diffusion degenerate with respect to the component Z, and delta is a process in charge of the reflection. So in terms of reference, we can so we refer to the book of Bensoussan-Lyons in 1984. So in this book, the framework of stochastic variational inequality has been introduced, but in a purely mathematical motivation. Okay. So now let me explain how do we get rid, how do we obtain this variational inequality structure. So we are going to get rid of delta, and this is quite paradoxal because we want to understand delta, but we are going to have a formulation of the problem that does not make appear delta explicitly. So what we are going to use, we have three ingredients. The first ingredient is the sign of the velocity on the boundary. The sign is equal to the sign of Z on the boundary. The second ingredient is a convexity property that tells us that so here the convex is the interval minus y, and for all phi in this convex, and for all Z on the boundary of this convex, phi minus Z times the outward normal vector remains negative. And the last ingredient is just the formulation of d delta in terms of y and z. Okay, so what we have, if we take an arbitrary phi in the convex, and we multiply phi minus dt with d delta, then we do this manipulation, and we see that using the property A, we obtain the blue quantity. But now this blue quantity, using the property B, becomes negative. So finally, if we replace d delta t by yt dt minus dzt, we obtain this variational inequality structure. So now the problem can be written only in terms of z and y. So we got rid of delta. We had a triple, now we just have a pair. And what I've shown Bensoussan and Thury in 2008, is that the couple Z and Y is Markovian, and it can be formulated only with these two conditions. Okay, so now we don't have delta t, and I would like also to put a reference concerning deterministic infinite dimensional variational inequality to say that somehow it's not surprising to see this type of structure in this type of problem because they were known for deterministic problems. For instance, like we can refer to, we have this very precise reference in the book of Duvaux-Lyons that can give you some information about that. Okay, so what else they obtain? They also obtain that the couple is an ergodic Markov process. That means there exists a unique invariant probability measure for the couple Z and Y, we call it nu. And for large time, the law of Z and Y converges to nu. Okay, so we are going to decompose this measure in 3 parts. Okay, so we have the domain. So in the abscissa we have Z, in the ordinate we have Y. Here is D plus, here is D minus, and inside is D. So I recall the stochastic variational inequality. So what do we have here? We have in blue, we have the infinitesimal generator related to the couple satisfying this problem. So here we have in D, when Z is strictly bounded by capital Y in absolute value, we recover the diffusion in Y, we recover the transport in Y, and we also have a transport in Z, when we are just inside the domain. When we are on D+, so Z equal to capital Y and small y, the velocity is positive, we only have diffusion in Y, transport in Y. That means the particle is exactly on the boundary and evolve on the boundary, but there is strictly no transport in Z. And similarly, we have the same thing on D-. There is only diffusion on the boundary and transport in the y direction. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to move to the notion of long cycles. So essentially what I'm going to present come from those 2 references. So one with Bensoussan and Niam, and the other one with Faux and Mathieu Laurière. Okay, so an important quantity that is helpful to go to the risk of failure is to be able to compute the variance of the plastic deformation for large time. And one thing that could be helpful is to look for a pattern, a repeating pattern. The engineers, they already had this idea. They already had the idea to split the trajectory in portion of trajectories that have no correlations. But actually, what is really powerful with the variational inequality is that we can split the trajectory properly. And this is the point of the long cycle. So let me define the first time T naught. This is the first time when Z reaches one of the 2 boundaries with a velocity that is 0. So here, say for instance, we have an arbitrary initial condition that is Y0, Z0, Y0, and the particle evolves and eventually touches one of the 2 boundaries, that is the left one. And so this is T0. Then after T0, we look at the next time S0 when the particle goes to the opposite boundary. And we look at the time when the velocity is 0 on the other boundary. So we have labeled delta. So delta is a sign of the first boundary that has been touched. So minus delta is a sign of the second boundary that is touched at S0. And then we look at the next time after S0 when we go back at the original point. And the point of doing that is that we have identified a portion of trajectory that is called long cycle between T0 and T1. This type of trajectory can be defined in a recursive way. So we can define the NS long cycle. And the thing is, we have an IID repeating pattern because at each beginning of a long cycle, the velocity is 0, and it always starts at the same position. This is one thing in terms of trajectory, and the second thing is that the noise is white, so it has independent and stationary increments that give the IID nature of this problem. So this very simple remark tells us that finally, if we look at the growth rate of the variance of the plastic deformation, that is only given by this formula, that is the variance of the plastic deformation over a long cycle divided by its mean time. Okay, and now we can exploit this. Actually, we can go further, and we have a functional central limit theorem for this plastic deformation. Actually, François, it comes from one of your questions in one of the seminars I gave in this. Yes, indeed, we have this type of result. And what we can tell about the risk of failure is if we are able to take, so we rescale the interval of time on which we look at this probability, and we rescale the threshold of fragility, then when n goes to infinity, this probability is actually known explicitly, and it uses the coefficient coming from the long cycle. So here gamma is there should be a gamma square here. So gamma square is the variance of the plastic deformation over the long cycle, and mu is the frequency of the long cycle. So asymptotically, we have an explicit formula for the risk of failure when n is large. Okay, so where it comes from? How do we have this result? We look at the plastic deformation and we split it. So say we look at the time tau. So we look at the integral between 0 and tau, and we split this integral in terms of the number of long cycles that we have up to the time tau. So we have this first sum, and the last sum is a remaining term where we just have the integral of y on the boundary between a long cycle that has not been completed. So delta tau is the sum of delta tau hat plus epsilon tau. So here we have delta k are all IID, and they all have these properties. They are of mean 0, and the variance is given by gamma square. And luckily, there exists a result in the literature that is an extension of Donsker principle. It's called Anscombe-Donsker principle. That tells us that in this context, here we have, so the delta J are those guys, and NT is the number of long cycles up to the time t. Then we can rescale the process delta hat in terms of delta hat n as follows. And Anscombe-Donsker principle tells us that the law of delta hat n converges in law to a Wiener process. And this is interesting because Anscombe-Donsker principle does not need to assume that the number of long cycles up to time t is independent of the delta k. And then using the fact that the remaining term goes to 0 as n goes to infinity, we obtain that doing a bit of algebra, we have been able to identify that this probability converges to something that is known explicitly. Well, for n large. Now, it would be interesting to discuss with engineers how it can be helpful, but that's the first step. Okay. So what we had just right before, we had a result for asymptotic time, or for large time. But how do we do if we want to compute something at a finite time? Say, for instance, by the long cycles, they say nothing about the variance of the plastic deformation for a fixed time. So one natural thing to do is to look at the backward Kolmogorov equation, because we can translate those quantities in terms of the Kolmogorov equation. And typical quantities that we have in mind are the probability to be in a plastic state at a given time, or the variance, or could be the plastic deformation or the total deformation. So what I'm going to present next, I will do it in a very simple framework. I will assume that the coefficients are 0 and the plastic boundary is 1. So we only have to, we will look at the Kolmogorov equation of this problem. Okay, so define gamma as follows. F and G are nice functions. And if we look at the function u defined by the expectation of gamma, at least formally, it should satisfy this problem. So we have this equation satisfied inside in D, and on the boundary, we have the blue equation. But then, using u, we can also look at the PDE satisfied for V, that is the variance of gamma. So V will satisfy the same problem, except that at the right-hand side, instead of having G, we will have the square of the derivative of u with respect to y. And F, the terminal condition, is 0. Where it comes from Lito's lemma, plus itoisometry. And using itoisometry, the right-hand side that we have here has a natural interpretation in terms of V. It's very simple, but I seldom see this type of trick in the literature. Okay, so how do we solve this problem? We proceed with a simple implicit Euler method. So we use the notation UNIJ for the approximation of u at the point xi, yj in the grid, discrete version of the domain at time tn. And we have, the problem is solved in forward in time, so we have an initial condition written in terms of function f. So we proceed with a very natural approximation of the differential operator. So this is done at the black point. And at the red point, that are essentially sorry, I had to rotate the domain because of problem of space on the slide, but so what we have here is D plus, and here we have D minus. So what we have on D plus here, which is exactly the same as here, we have no, at the red point, we have no transport in Z, so we only have to discretize this operator. And at the gray point is just truncation, so we just put a Neumann boundary condition. Okay, so let me show you a comparison between Monte Carlo and this finite difference scheme. And if we look at the probability to be on the plastic boundary versus the time, we obtain, using basic techniques, a very good result. So in the first case here, we have taken f is indicator function to be on the boundary, and g is equal to 0. If we look at the other figure, we have computed the variance of the total deformation. So again, we have done a comparison between the PDE technique and the Monte Carlo method. And we have chosen f is equal to 0 and g is equal to y. So this is what we have here is we are able to compute statistics at a finite time of for those problems for elastoplastic oscillators. Okay. Now I move to the problem of what we are doing at SEMRAX. So in the team, we have Mathieu Laurière, Jorwa Lee, Ada, Duo, and Jonathan. So we are working on the AGB equation and free boundary value problem that are related to the optimal stopping and the stochastic control, where the underlying process satisfies the variational inequality. Okay, so the problem is as follows. I use again the notation U, and we look at the supremum over all stopping time between small t and capital T of this function. It's almost the same as gamma, except that we have the stopping time that appears as an argument here and here. So at least formally, this function must satisfy this free boundary value problem. So again, we have exactly the same operator as before inside the domain, and on the boundary, we have the same operator as before. Typically, we are targeting this type of quantity that tells us how to estimate the probability to have been through the plastic behavior in an interval of time t, small t, capital T, so T. We have also the stochastic control problem. So if now we change the noise, we assume that there is a component in the noise that is controlling the system. And we would like to understand what type of noise will maximize this type of quantity. And again, this is exactly the same operator structure that we have here, except that we have one term that makes appear the control here. And the quantities that we are targeting are typically, for instance, it's an example, what type of control would maximize the time that you spend on the boundary. Okay, so we are doing the numerics. So typically what we do is a combination of Howard algorithm and the numerical approach that I've described before. And the algorithm that you are using is typically the one that is presented in the paper of Bokanovsky, Marozo, and Zidani on Howard algorithm. Okay, so that's it for SEMRAX project. I will not discuss more for the time being. I will finish with ongoing research, and in this part, I will discuss what can we do beyond the long cycle framework. What type of other mechanical behavior could be interesting to discuss, and quite surprisingly, another problem which seems to have no connection with what I've discussed before, that also has a variational inequality structure. Okay, so what's beyond the long cycle? So is it possible to generalize the notion of long cycle? If we remain in a framework of elasto-perfectly plastic oscillator, then as long as we keep a noise that has stationary increment and independent increment, it seems that the long cycle property can also be obtained. But if we want to study the problem with a colored noise, for instance, take for instance Xi is an Ornstein-Uhlenbeck process, then the long cycle approach may not be, seems not to be doable, because you have a third dimension in the problem. You need to take the noise itself as a state variable of your system. And also, if you look at the integral of the noise, this process does not have stationary increments. So it's not clear how to identify a repeating pattern for this type of problem, but there is an alternative. At this moment, it's just a conjecture. If we want to obtain the asymptotic growth rate of the variance of the plastic deformation for this problem, with, for instance, for the colored noise problem, what we could do, we could combine the solution of the Poisson equation with the invariant measure in this blue expression. I've done some numerical tests, works very well. The idea behind is to use a central limit theorem for martingales, but I'm not going into the details. But what I want to say is this is one way to go beyond the notion of long cycle. So here is another mechanical behavior that could be also interesting to study. Now, in the drift, in the velocity, that would make appear explicitly one part of the total displacement, total deformation that we didn't have before. When alpha is equal to 0, we have the model. We have the model that we saw before. And a very important difference that this model has with the other one is X is also ergodic. Before it was not. So this is an interesting model to study. And I want to finish on this experiment that has been. So I met Jun Zhang at Courant, who's a professor there, and also his PhD student. And this PhD student is Mac Wang. And Mac explained, introduced me to this experiment, and he gave a seminar about it. And what we have here, we have a water tank, and we have a moving plate at the surface of the water. And below we have a heater, and the heater so gave some warmth to the fluid, and the fluid tends to raise to the surface at a given point, yt. So this is called the Rayleigh-Bénard instability. And here we are going to use the notation yt for the location of this upwelling flow. We are going to also to use the notation xt for the center of the plate. And what they have done in their experiment, they have studied the motion of the plate, especially with, they look at the impact of the size of the plate, on the motion, so what type of motion they have. And they have observed that there are two types of states. One is called oscillatory state, that is given in the first figure. So in the abscissa you have the time, and in the ordinate you have the displacement of the plate. And it is oscillatory state in the sense that sometimes the plate sticks to one wall, and then suddenly sometimes the plate moves to the other wall. This is the case when the size of the plate is smaller than the critical value for the size of the plate. And there is another state called the trap state, when the size of the plate is larger than its critical value dc. And this is what we have in the bottom. And the plate never touched the wall. So those figures come from the experimental data. And they tried to explain, when they provided a model to explain why they had this phenomenon, and they came up with this piecewise smooth system. So when there is no interaction with the noise, and using physical approximation, relevant physical approximation, they have been able to capture the physics in a one-dimensional model. So we have a differential equation for x. U is a potential, and we have also, there is a differential equation for y. So the point is, if you look at the potential, all the information about the two states are in the function alpha. And the function alpha tells you when this potential is convex or concave. So what you have here, for instance, in the case of an oscillatory state, your potential is concave. But in the case of a trap state, your potential is convex. And this function U explains why they have these two states. But they also describe the interaction with the walls. And this comes from their paper. They tell the floating boundary arrives at the side boundary xt equal plus or minus L. It is said to be at rest at the side wall. X dot is 0. And the floating boundary remains immobile until the net force from the flows switches direction and starts to drive the floating boundary away from the side wall. Okay, but I look at that, and how do I interpret this passage? Okay, what we have here, we have a balance of momentum where the inertia has been neglected. And we have the three quantities, A plus the sum of A, B, C, 0. So what we obtain, we have the variation of the displacement of the floating boundary that is equal to minus the variation of momentum of the forces from the flow applied to the boundary, minus something that is the variation of momentum of the forces from the wall. So this term behaves exactly like the plastic deformation that we have discussed in the beginning. So the problem now can be reformulated in terms of a variational inequality, and on top of that we can also add the random fluctuation effect in this problem. So this is the main observation from the experiment. So the point here is there are variational inequality, there are problems that have a variational inequality structure, but they are all not from the same, they do not come from the same origin. And that's all for
Okay, thank you very much, Laurent. Is there any question?
Yes.
So at some point you want to compute the variance of the displacement?
Yeah.
So at some point you want to compute the variance of the displacements, and so if I understand correctly, you represent this variance in terms of the integral of PDE, of the gradient of the PDE.
Yeah.
So this is the expedition of the integral of the squared of the gradient, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
So you first discretize the PDE.
So we are here.
Okay, so you first discretize the PDE.
Yeah.
And then you run Monte Carlo simulation for the to compute the expedition. Is it correct? Or?
No, here we are in a purely PDE framework. We solve first U, and then from U we solve V. So it's a two-step approach, and then we compare the result with a more simple Monte Carlo simulation. This is what we had.
Okay. You reinterpret the expedition as yes,
yeah.
In terms of PD, of course.
Any more questions?
Another question. What is the magnitude of the displacement you are interested in? At some point you compute the probability that the maximal displacement is greater than something.
Yes, yeah.
So what are the typical values? And what is the typical value for the probability? This is 1% or?
So far I don't know how to apply this result in practice. So I haven't discussed the type of parameters exactly. I don't know exactly what they need, because I wouldn't have discussed this problem if I don't have to, if I don't have something to I don't have some material to show to them. Now I have this method, but how to employ it? I need some help from them. But I can't really tell. I can answer your question.
Because here you use central literary for discussing the convergence, okay, and so
Yeah.
you have an estimate of the quality. But if you are interested in really in large deviation,
Yeah.
you could obtain a completely different limit. And it depends really on the range of quality you are interested in. If you are interested whether in reasonable qualities or in very small, very tiny.
I see. But
arguments.
I see. Yeah, but it's beyond my knowledge.
I was a bit hesitant of asking this question, but let me ask it anyway. In the second equation that you have on the board, yes, so what really do you mean by dz minus y dt times something greater than
Actually,
0?
this dz minus yt dt, this guy is as bounded variation. So it can be understood as a Stieltjes integral.
Oh, okay, so you actually write
Yeah,
it as a Stieltjes integral formulation.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. So that's really the point. Okay. No, that's a silly question, just that I was nervous with that.
Yeah.
Any more questions? If not, let's thank Laurent again.